listening to the YPO Tech Network AI Brief, and I'm Stephen Forte. The governance gap. Today, we'll talk about why AI is already running inside your organization. The question is whether anyone in leadership actually knows what it's doing, where it's going, and what it's exposing. We've spent a lot of time on this show talking about adoption, who's deploying AI, how fast, which tools, but there's a pattern forming that's harder to ignore each week. The organizations moving fastest on AI are not necessarily the ones doing it best. Speed without visibility is just chaos with a software license. This week, three stories draw a very clear line from platform controls to data blind spots to a courtroom in Manhattan. First, Microsoft's February 2026 update for Microsoft's Copilot. And this one is dense, so stay with me because if you're a Microsoft shop, this is material. The headline feature is the Project Manager Agent, public preview in March, general availability in April. Notice the language, not a co-pilot, an agent. It has a named role, it plans, organizes, and manages work through AI-assisted project tracking. That's a shift from tool that helps you to entity that operates alongside you. And Microsoft is also rolling out multi-agent workflows, agents calling other agents to complete complex tasks. Users can see the handoffs. One agent passes work to another with a different specialization. That's an operating model change, not a feature update. But here's what matters most for the people running these environments. Microsoft's security tools now include a risk-based AAI agent inventory. Every agent deployed across Microsoft's development platforms shows up in a single pane: posture assessments, misconfiguration alerts, excessive permission flags, full activity logs. Security teams can manage AI agents with the same rigor they apply to human identities. If you've been listening to this show, you know we've talked about employees going rogue, spinning up AI tools without telling anyone, feeding company data into platforms no one approved. This is Microsoft's answer. Behind the firewall, managed, auditable, governed, there's more. Copilot's third-party connectors are now in public preview across all tenants. Governed access to external services like Canva, HubSpot, Notion, and Linear. Admins control which connectors are available from the admin center. Users authenticate with their own credentials. Data is retrieved in real time, not indexed, not stored. And on the licensing side, employees requesting a Copilot license now have to include a business justification that surfaces to IT admins during review. Small thing, big signal. Microsoft is building procurement-level governance into AI tool access, and tying it all together is a new readiness dashboard, a centralized view in the admin center that organizes deployment essentials, data security settings, and user experience configuration into one place with completion tracking and guided recommendations. For IT leaders who've been duct taping their Copilot rollout together across 12 different consoles, this is overdue, and it's welcome. The bottom line, Microsoft is not just shipping features, they're shipping a control plane. And if your organization runs on the Microsoft stack, this changes how you think about AI deployment. Everything behind the firewall, everything auditable, every agent inventoried. That's not a nice to have, and that's table stakes for enterprise AI in 2026. Second story, and this is the one I want you to sit with. The 2026 data threat report from Thales and S&P Global dropped last week, and the numbers are sobering. Only 34% of organizations know where all of their data resides. Let that land. 2 out of 3 companies cannot tell you with confidence where their data is. 47% of sensitive data stored in the cloud is unencrypted. 61% of organizations now cite AI as their top data security risk. Nearly 60% have experienced deepfake-driven incidents. 48% report reputational damage from AI-generated misinformation or impersonation. And only 30%, 3 in 10, have a dedicated AI security budget. The rest are relying on traditional security line items never designed for this threat landscape. Now, here's what gets lost in the headlines. This is not primarily a cybersecurity problem. Yes, credential theft and human error are real attack vectors. But the deeper issue, the one I see over and over, is that companies have the data. It exists. It's sitting somewhere. They just don't know where it is. It's not organized. They can't classify it and they can't retrieve it. Only 39% of companies can fully classify their data. Think about what that means in practice. Massive amounts of time inside organizations is spent just trying to find information that already exists internally. People rebuilding reports that were built 6 months ago because no one can locate the original. Teams making decisions without data that's already been collected because the retrieval path doesn't exist or nobody knows it's there. And then you layer AI on top of that. AI amplifies whatever it touches. If your data is clean and governed, AI makes it dramatically more useful. If it's scattered across 50 systems with no consistent taxonomy, AI amplifies the mess. As the head of data security at Thales put it, when security is weak, AI can amplify those weaknesses far faster than any human ever could. So when I hear organizations say they're not ready for AI, what I'm really hearing is they're not ready for their own data. The AI part is almost secondary. The foundation has to come first. And right now, for 66% of organizations, that foundation has cracks they can't even see. Third story, and if you operate in the US or do business with American companies, eyes up front for this one. On February 10th, 2026, Judge Jed Rakoff of a federal court in Manhattan ruled in United States versus Hepner that conversations with Anthropic's Claude chatbot are not protected by attorney-client privilege. This is the first ruling of its kind, and it landed like a brick in the legal community. Here's what happened. Bradley Hepner, former CEO of a financial services company facing securities and wire fraud charges, used the consumer version of Claude to prepare his legal defense. He fed in confidential case facts, defense theories, and strategy. 31 chat transcripts. His legal team logged them as privileged, calling them artificial intelligence generated analysis, conveying facts to counsel for the purpose of obtaining legal advice. The government challenged that designation, and Judge Rakoff sided with the prosecution on two independent grounds. First, Claude is not an attorney. There is no attorney-client relationship between a user and an AI platform. Full stop. Second, there is no reasonable expectation of confidentiality under Anthropic's consumer terms of service. And this is where it gets pointed. Anthropic's consumer TOS explicitly reserves the right to review user prompts for training and safety purposes, retain data on their servers, and disclose information to government authorities in response to legal process. Judge Rakoff compared it to discussing your legal strategy in a crowded public elevator. You don't get to claim that was confidential just because you thought nobody important was listening. But the ruling goes further. The judge noted that by feeding his lawyer's advice into Claude, the defense theories, the strategy documents, Hepner may have waived privilege over the original legal advice itself. Not just the Claude outputs, the inputs, the advice his actual attorneys gave him, reprocessed through a consumer AI platform, may now be fair game in discovery. That's not a hypothetical risk. That's a live consequence in an active criminal case. Now, Judge Rakoff left the door open. He referenced a legal precedent called Koval, which extends privilege to non-lawyer professionals when counsel directs their use. The implication is clear. If Hepner's attorneys had directed him to use Claude, and if there had been a reasonable confidentiality framework in place, the outcome might have been different. And that's the practical takeaway for every YPO member listening. Subscription tier matters. Enterprise AI subscriptions, Claude Enterprise, OpenAI's Enterprise Plan come with contractual confidentiality provisions, data isolation, and explicit commitments not to train on your inputs. Consumer and free tier platforms do not. That distinction is now a live factor in whether your communications survive a discovery request. But, and this is important, even an enterprise subscription does not create attorney-client privilege on its own. Counsel still needs to direct the use. The tool needs to be part of a supervised legal workflow, not an employee freelancing on their lunch break. The practical impact is immediate. Litigators will now routinely request AI prompts and outputs in discovery. Adversaries will scour privilege logs for any mention of AI as a backdoor into protected communications. and the inadvertent use of consumer AI platforms by employees uploading case documents, customer data, strategic plans into tools where the provider's terms allow data reuse could open your organization to the kind of exposure no general counsel wants to explain to the board. So, three stories, one thread, the governance gap. Microsoft is building the infrastructure to close it within its ecosystem. Agent inventories, posture assessments, admin-controlled connectors, centralized readiness dashboards. That's the control plane. But the Thales report shows how far most organizations are from even needing it because they haven't solved the foundational problem of knowing where their data sits. And Judge Rakoff's ruling shows what happens when AI use outpaces governance entirely. Confidential information walks out the front door and the legal system says you left it open. The takeaway is this: AI governance is not a compliance checkbox. It's an operating discipline. It touches procurement, security, legal, and data architecture simultaneously. And the organizations that treat it as somebody else's problem are going to keep showing up in reports like the Thales survey, or worse, in rulings like Hepner. That's the YPO Tech Network AI brief for Monday, March 9th, 2026. I'm Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to a fellow member who needs to hear it. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, stay sharp.